Okay, hello everyone. This is Jackie from NEDIC, and I'm hoping that everyone can hear me okay. If you're having any issues in terms of the way that the webinar looks or sounds, please let us know in the chat room. Um, if anyone is having trouble hearing either myself or Helen, please let us know as well. I am absolutely thrilled to be able to introduce Helen Vlakoinoyas today. We are coming to you live from Nob Hill Public School, which is in the east end of Toronto, part of the Toronto District School Board, where Helen is a grade 7 and 8 teacher. Helen has she's trained teachers and implemented body image curricula, including the Reflections of Me Body Image Project for the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, and Beyond Images, a body image and media literacy curriculum for grades 4 to 8, created by NEDIC with the support of the Dove Self-Esteem Project. I was lucky enough to speak with Helen on a panel last year and was absolutely charmed by the way in which she conveyed information about body image in schools and the way that she told stories about her own experiences. So I'm really happy to be able to facilitate this webinar today. I will throw it over to Helen, and I'm going to ask that for folks that have questions, just please write those questions in the box for the chat room. And if time allows, we will get to them at the end, or we'll make sure that you get answers after the webinar ends. So I'll throw it over to Helen now.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous, but I'm so looking forward to sharing stories, sharing ideas, sharing resources, etc., with all of you. So at the end of my PowerPoint, you will see I've left my email address, and I welcome any questions even afterwards. If you would like to email me directly, you're more than welcome to. So I'm a grade 7-8 teacher, and we're actually sitting right inside my classroom, which is exciting. It's funny not to have my students sitting right in front, but we do have some visitors here as well that are with me, and so thank you so much for being here, because it's sort of awkward to talk right to a computer, actually, so it's nice to have people here too, but I'm glad you're here as well. You'll notice, just before I start, on my slides, you'll notice that they're a little bit heavy with information and text, etc., but I just wanted to make a note that I want you to be able to access the information afterwards, so I tried to put as much as I could on the slides, so that then you had them afterwards as well and could refer to them as needed. So we're going to get started. You'll notice one of the things that as I'll go through the agenda in a second. I love stories, and I love to tell stories of experiences. I think that's really powerful. I like to talk to my students about that as well. So I will share lots of stories from my experiences, and I hope that helps to facilitate the learning today. So here we go. Here is our overview for the presentation. So I'm really looking at reflection as a key focus for today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, because I think that's important. I think it's important to know who I am, why am I sitting here, what are my experiences to share with you. But then I want to take you through a journey, and that journey will take us to the umbrella of from the umbrella of equity education into looking at our biases, into looking at classroom integration, and finally looking at beyond the classroom into the community and into the school. How can we address the issue of body image throughout our school and really connect it to the larger society? We'll reflect right at the end too. So here is this comic, and I just wanted to show you that here it is live. But this comic actually I found it's actually from the Toronto Star in 1999. And in 1999, I was attending York University. I was doing a drama course, and I'll talk a little bit more about that because that was a pivotal time for me. But I found this comic strip, and since 1999, I glued it on this piece of paper, and I've kept it. And so while I was getting today ready, in all honesty, this comic came back because it's 2013. And the issue of body image isn't just something that we're talking about today or that we're dealing with today. It's actually way before 1999 even. I'm not going to get into sort of the historical elements of it, but it just really, I wanted to start with this comic just to sort of place even my own historical context with the issue. And you can read it there on your own. I hope it's not too dark. I had to take a picture of it, but there it is. So I also wanted to share, I'm a drama teacher, and I'm lucky enough I teach drama on Rotary to the 3 grade 7, 8 classes here. So I thought I would start with a monologue, actually. So I have a little piece of this monologue here, the beginning actually and the end, and there's a middle part that I'm going to read as well. Eve Ensler, this is her book called The Good Body. Eve Ensler wrote the Vagina Monologues, and this is another piece that she wrote, really looking at her stomach as a main character, if you will. And I stumbled upon this book at the Women's Bookstore in Toronto a number of years ago, and sometimes I like to jump into sort of the heart of a book, and this time I started at the preface, and this is where I'm going to read from today. So here is a little piece of Eve Ensler's The Good Body that's really going to really put our work today in a context as well. So here we go. In the midst of a war on Iraq, in a time of torture camps and daily bombings, when civil liberties are disappearing as fast as the ozone layer, when 1 out of 3 women in the world will be beaten or raped in her lifetime, why write a play about my stomach? Maybe because my stomach is one thing I feel I have control over, or maybe because I have hoped that my stomach is something I could get control over. Maybe because I see how my stomach has come to occupy my attention. I see how other women's stomachs or butts or thighs or hair or skin have come to occupy their attention, so that we have very little time left for the war on Iraq, or much else for that matter. When a group of ethnically diverse, economically disadvantaged women in the United States was recently asked about the one thing they would change in their lives if they could, the majority of these women said that they would lose weight. Maybe I identify with these women because I have bought into the idea that if my stomach were flat, then I would be good and I would be safe. I would be protected. I would be accepted, admired, important, and loved. Maybe because for most of my life I have felt wrong, dirty, guilty, and bad. And my stomach, well, it's the carrier, the pouch for all of that self-hatred. Maybe because my stomach has become the repository for my sorrow, my childhood scars, my unfulfilled ambition, my unexpressed rage. Like a toxic dump, it is where the explosive trajectories collide. The Judeo-Christian imperative to be good, the patriarchal mandate that women be quiet, be less, the consumer state imperative to be better, which is based on the assumption that you are born wrong and bad, and that being better always involves spending money, lots of money. Maybe because as the world rapidly divides into fundamentalist camps, reductive sound bites, and polarizing platitudes, an exploration of my stomach and the life therein has the potential to shatter those dangerous constraints. The Good Body began with me and my particular obsession with my imperfect stomach. I have charted this self-hatred, recorded it, tried to follow it back to its source. I have been to more than 40 countries in the last 6 years. I've seen the rampant and insidious poisoning. Skin lightening creams sell as fast as toothpaste in Africa and Asia. The mothers of 8-year-olds in America remove their daughters' ribs so they will not have to worry about dieting. 5-year-olds in Manhattan do strict asanas so they won't embarrass their parents in public by being chubby. Girls vomit and starve themselves in China and Fiji and everywhere. Korean women remove Asia from their eyelids. And the list goes on and on. I'm stepping off this capitalist treadmill. I'm going to take a deep breath and find a way to survive, not being flat or perfect. And I'm inviting you to join me, to stop trying to be anyone other than who you are. Tell the image makers and magazine sellers and the plastic surgeons that you're not afraid, that what you fear the most is the death of imagination and originality and metaphor and passion. Then be bold and love your body. Stop fixing it. It was never broken. So that's just, I sort of chunked it from the preface, but there's a woman reflecting on that impact that body image and her stomach has had on her life. So who am I? Why am I sitting here in front of the computer? I have a list here, but there are a couple of things that I wanted to mention about my own journey. And I go back to that comic strip that I had at the beginning of the PowerPoint. One day I decided I was going to take some theater courses at York, and I stumbled upon a course that honestly changed my life. It was called Drama and Education. And in the second term, our professor said, okay, you have to choose an issue. You have to create a 1-hour workshop to teach the class about this issue, and you have to use drama and theater to teach the issue. So I had finished my degree at Trent, my BA at Trent. I was doing my Bachelor of Social Work at York. I decided to take this drama class just on the side because I knew I wanted to be a teacher one day. And I sat there and I thought, I was going through my own personal journey with my body, with hating myself, with feeling, putting myself down on the way I looked and wishing I was this one and that one and had that and this and thighs, face, hair, whatever. And I thought, you know what, maybe I need to choose body image as a topic. And I remember that's when I first stumbled upon NEDIC and Sheena's place downtown, and I went to different organizations. And what I found was, as I was reading and preparing, that I was going through this self-therapy. And it really hit me it really hit me the impact that it has had on my life as a larger woman, and totally the idea of identity politics. And I believe as a teacher that needs to be center in our classrooms. It's not about outing ourselves and our issues in the classroom, but bringing issues into the classroom and creating, using the language curriculum or the arts curriculum that are more open curricula to explore issues that our students are going through, not just us ourselves. So that led to an amazing workshop where people in the class started talking about being anorexic when they were younger and started talking about issues that they were going through. I got through maybe 1/10 of my workshop in that hour, but it really hit me how much it wasn't just me, that I wasn't alone. And so I became a teacher. I went to the faculty in 2000, and in 2001, ETFO, the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, had a call for writers for something called the Body Image Project. So my first year, I phoned up and I said, I'm just a first-year teacher. I don't know if I have anything to offer. And the wonderful woman at the end of the line who spearheaded the Body Image Project, Jan Moxie, said, you have lots to offer, so send in your resume and stuff. And so I co-wrote the grade 5 unit for that. And that then led to lots of amazing opportunities to work with NEDIC, to facilitate work in the board and in the province around body image and the topic of body image. So that is who I am. So this slide I'm not going to read to you. It's there for you to refer to, but inclusive curriculum and equity education is really important for us to reflect on. It is not, when we talk about equity in our board, we have an equity policy that is something that is mandated for us as teachers. But if we look at different equity issues, we don't want to treat them as a separate period in our 5-day cycle, for example. It's not an add-on. It's not something that we read a story and we can check off we did equity. Oh, look, we talked about race today or whatnot. It needs to be embedded. It needs to be threaded in. It needs to be integrated. And there are many ways, I believe, that we can do that within our curricula. Again, I think through language and the arts. It's a great way to explore that. And so it needs to be, as it says here too, a way of thinking that it is inclusive, and that is equitable, so that kids that are sitting in front of us, the students, feel that they are represented in our classroom. So it needs to be integrated to the point of not just a topic we talk about, but that whether they're reading or writing something about an issue, or they're listening to, there could be a media text that you're looking at, a video, etc., that this becomes embedded. And so this I took straight out of off of our website in the TDSB. So questions like whose voices are present and whose are absent, and who is being recognized and how are they being recognized. I think personally, body image is an equity issue. It is an issue that sometimes, might not be mainstream on our list of equity issues that we talk about or that we refer to, but it definitely is something we need to address. And furthermore, I'll talk about this a little bit later too in the presentation. It's not something we talk about at 7-8. It's not, they're changing or they're going through puberty, etc., or the pressures are a little bit higher. So now, that's what we talk about. It needs to. The research has shown that children as young as 4 know the difference. They know the difference between fat and thin. They know the preferred is thin. They know, for example, lighter skin versus darker skin, etc. And so we need to start talking and integrating the issue right in kindergarten. So what about the issue of body image? We're going to go this next part, which is looking at our biases. I really urge you, if you have a pencil around or a piece of paper or anything, or even just as you're thinking, I want you really to take some time to reflect and really think honestly, if I can say that. Just, you don't have to answer, you don't have to send your answers to anyone, but really honestly reflect on some of the questions I'm going to pose, because when we talk about body image and education and in our classrooms and in our schools, I always like to start with this to really get us to challenge some of the biases and some of the messages and some of the norms that are out there that sometimes we accept and go with the flow because maybe we haven't taken a second or we haven't had a time to really sit and reflect. I can give you lots of different, we can talk about, and I will share books and lessons, etc. But if our thinking and our reflection isn't there beforehand, sometimes the language we use and how we present the issue will affect the messaging for children. So I'm going to take you just through some questions. So here we go, challenging our biases. So these questions I want you to think about in terms of body image, in terms of even the topic, and I've noted a couple of things here, like what do you believe about eating and food? What do you believe about dieting? What are your biases around dieting? How do you feel after a big celebratory meal? So after Thanksgiving, did you turn to someone and say the diet starts Tuesday? My pants, I need to wear my pants are too small. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this doesn't fit anymore. When does the diet start? It'll start after. So that message is really, I want you to think about. Funny, I went to the doctor, and I get this question all the time. You must be diabetic. So what are even the notion of, because we're large, does that equal someone, that I would have diabetes over somebody that's maybe smaller than I am? What are your notions about that? Even about, I was just listening to the radio this morning, and the obesity, right? Like this mad dash around talking about obesity in our kids and everything. So when you think about that, what are your biases around that? Do you believe in health at every size? Is size sort of equated to health? And finally, and something I'm going to share with you in my slides are, what is the language you use? So specifically in the school, in the classroom, in the staff room, I love the staff room, but the staff room can be a place where lots of chatter goes on. And so I'm going to be very open and candid with some of the chatter that I've heard in many staff rooms. So just think about it. I'm just going to give you, 10 more seconds to look at these questions. How have you been affected by the issue of body image? How does your language affect those around you? Or how have other people's language affected you? And finally, are you ready to challenge the misconceptions and myths? So there's lots of definitions when you look up. I started, what is body image? And, and I had all these gobbledygook words, and I was like, I need a cleaner definition. So I went to my good friend NEDIC.ca, and I'm just going to leave this up here so that you can read this as well. But really, it's how you see yourself and how you see others perceive you as well. That's a really important piece. So it's when, what do you believe about yourself and your body, and then how do you think others see you as well? So I just wanted to give you a definition so that we ground our work as well. Thank you. And health at every size. This, I put just the first page. So if you go to NEDIC.ca, there's amazing articles and information there, bulletins as well, about research around the topic of body image and eating disorders, etc. But this is something that I've come to. And again, I'm going to be very personal in telling you this. As a larger woman, this was something I thought I was unhealthy. I was unhealthy. I am large, period. And I remember when I read this, and all I did here was I just screenshot the first page of the article, but you can find it at nedic.ca. It talks about what it stands for. It talks about that people can be healthy at every size, every spectrum of size. So, so again, that question about, do you believe that you can be healthy and be larger? Do you believe that you can be healthy and be smaller? What determines how we define what healthy is? So that's important. This, sorry, before I talk about this logo, I forgot to mention, that's okay, we can stay. That body image as well is not just about fat and thin. We need to think about our biases if we're talking about anything on the exterior. So it could be facial disfigurement and how we feel about that, or like skin color, right? Race, etc. So we need to look. It's not, it could be even our nose and the size of our nose. It's not just a fat and thin issue, that it does extend beyond that. So this Apple logo was created when we were writing the body image project with ETFO. Jan Moxie, who spearheaded the project, decided we needed a logo to really think about the whole topic holistically, to move beyond sort of this physical health aspect and the physical activity and let's exercise more, etc. And looking at health and being healthy, even around our mental health, right? Our body, our hearts, our mind. We always talked about when we facilitated workshops, those three aspects, right? Like we could be physically fit, etc., but maybe we have a really negative attitude towards ourselves. And so how does that mental health, that self-esteem piece is huge. And, I've shared this story before when I've talked, but it always makes me laugh. It was, I was teaching at a school. I was walking out. It makes me laugh, but I was walking out to go do yard duty, and this little grade 1 student turned to me, "Oh, it's me, hi." And I said, "Hey." And the student turned to me and said, "Boy, you're fat." And in that instant, I thought I could scream at the child for saying this. What was, in the 10 seconds in my brain, I thought, how can I switch gears for this child in their brain to think that actually being fat is not negative? And maybe they didn't even imply it to be negative. And I turned and I crouched down and I said, "You're so right. I am fat. and I'm big and you're small, and look at how we're different, and look at how wonderful we are. And the student looked up to me and said, yeah, can you play with me at recess? I said, yeah, okay, I'll be in the corner watching the kids, but I can play with you. But it was to me monumental. I mean, I got tears in my eyes, to be honest, going outside, because I thought, I hope that maybe now, maybe that word fat that is so laden with, with negativity, etc., maybe for that child it will be like, okay, it's a good thing, because hey, Miss V is big and she's pretty, she's funny and smart, etc. And so and I've had kids tell me that, and inside, I have to be honest, it destroys me a little bit. And then I have to, that self-esteem piece again, I have to say, no, it's okay. And what's my teaching moment with that? And so that self-esteem piece in this apple is really, really important. Do we feel strong and confident in who we are as we are? Are we positive? It all plays a role. So I love this visual for that. So, and this poster, I think it's the Syracuse workers. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. This is a poster that we used when we facilitated workshops with teachers, and looking at even the stereotypes of what we believe how a boy should be and how a girl should be. I wanted to include it just so that you could see that sometimes we're looking at what we believe. Like, do we believe that boys should have six packs? I had two boys last year in my class, grade 8s, who were constantly working out for six packs. And they would come and I'd be like, hey, put your shirts down. But it was this constant looking, talking about their six packs. And so we need to also address that the issue is really starting to affect our boys as well. Historically, it's been more of a women's issue, and it's still, I believe, strongly a women's issue as well. But our boys have really become affected by it, with whether it be six packs, muscles, working out, etc. That's protein. My grade 8 boys talk about these protein shakes, and I'm like, drink milk. What are you doing, right? And so this poster really looks at what do we expect from our girls and our boys, and is it small dainty girls and big muscular boys, and so this addresses sometimes the gender issues as well with our expectations. So this next slide, these are the story. I'm going to share some stories with you from my experience. I'm going to start at the top circle and move my way around to the right. That is clockwise. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I teach children. Okay. So clockwise, I still have to do left and right. Okay. So in one of the schools that I was working in several years ago, there was a teacher who would come into the staff room and talk about she was getting married soon, and she needed to watch her figure. And one day she came in and she said, that's it, I have the students as part of this crusade of making sure my figure was perfect for my wedding day. So we were all sitting there, a small staff, and what are we talking about? Well, I told them if they see a chocolate bar in my hand, they were to come and physically slap my hand, or just like my shoulder, the back of my head. I need them to be on me because I can't slip. So I took a deep breath, and sometimes it's hard to address different things, and I think I did leave it. I didn't say anything at that moment, and I was thinking that night, it was bothering me, it was eating me up inside, because I thought, what is the message that we're giving our students when we say, come and slap my hand when I have a chocolate bar in it? What are the implications to what that chocolate bar means to dieting, to eating, how we eat, how we see food, etc. So the next day I went in and I really quietly just talked with her. It was great. I didn't, in all of my work all over the years, I don't want to be this person that people feel scared to. I still have friends that'll say, okay, don't get mad at me, but I'm on a diet. And I'm not here to police anybody, but I am here to, I feel I want to talk about the issue, and I want to talk openly about it. So I made sure to go and say and just have her think and not impose what I believe per se, but just have her just think about her words. So that was one story. Student snacks. So in some of our schools right across the province, and I could infer and say that maybe across beyond the province, the food that students bring to school to eat becomes an issue. Where sometimes, if I can use the word again, we feel we need to police the snacks that our kids bring. And in some schools, over the years of facilitating work, teachers have said in their schools that they actually do lunch checks, and kids get points for healthy lunches and snacks, and they get their unhealthy, and we'll talk about that in a second too, their unhealthy snacks taken away, and and there's whatever prize for the class that has the healthiest food that they bring, etc. I've seen teachers yelling really badly at kids for the bag of chips maybe they brought to eat at recess, or the cupcake that they had included in their lunch. We need to be careful. We need, again, if we talk about the language that we're using and we talk about the messaging that we're sending to our students, yelling at students for the snacks that they have in their bag is not a way to promote healthy eating, I believe. One student actually last year, one of my sevens had snacks, and a teacher said something to him, and he turned to me and he had tears in his eyes and he said, "This is what I have at home. This is what my mom put in my lunch." And he goes, and it was a snack at recess. And he said, "If you look at my lunch bag, I actually have an apple and like this is just a snack." And I think we fall into, we need to be careful because there are socioeconomic factors as well. In many of the communities I've worked with, if there's the dollar sale at No Frills and there's lots of kids at home and it's the Mr. Noodles that we're going to buy because that's what's going to feed us and that's what we're able to afford, that's the food we're going to have. And we have to be careful of how the cross sector of, of class, of socioeconomic factors and food, right? Sometimes going to McDonald's is going to feed and fill us up a little bit more than buying the really expensive vegetables in the winter. And so while we do want to talk about our food choices, we don't want to inundate students with making them feel guilty and bad. We don't want to have them sneaking food, hiding food. I used to do that as a kid because I would get yelled at as a larger girl. I've been big my whole life. If my parents would yell at me for eating that cookie, so I'd hide it. And then it wasn't one cookie, it was 6, because then I could quickly shove it in my mouth in my room and brush away the crumbs. So what beyond gaining weight, what messages do we have there? So how do we support our students and their food, and how do we talk to them about that? The staff room banter. This is something that I love. I love that some of my staff are here sitting in this room. Because to be honest, I don't hear this quite, and I'm being honest, not because they're here. I don't hear this quite as much in our staff room here at Nob Hill. We are such a fun staff, and we go to the staff room and we laugh about silly. We're not putting down kids and all of this. We're laughing about, I don't know, me tripping down, something or whatnot. But staff room banter. The staff room is a very interesting place when we talk about food and eating and body image, etc. Some of the things that I noted before, that I talked about before, with the questions around, I ate too much. The diet has to start today. It was Thanksgiving, etc. And it actually ties into the next bubble about snack day. That's the funnest day for me to sit and just listen. Because it's, I'm gonna have that cookie, but I'm only gonna have one, and it's this we talk about food in such a guilty way, and oh my God, why did you make that cake? Now I have to eat that piece of cake, and I'm gonna have to exercise for 2 hours instead of 1 hour, and so why I bring this up is that I want you to go back to your biases. What is the language? You're gonna have a piece of cake. It's okay. Enjoy the cake. Enjoy it. We live, I believe we only live once, and it's goes by so quickly. So enjoy that piece of cake. It's okay. So that staff room banter and talking about, oh, I have an unhealthy lunch. So even our own feelings of guilt towards ourselves is something that I invite you to reflect on. I invite you to think about um, when you're making your lunch, simply, or go having dessert, or having that snack. In our school, snack day is amazing on tomorrow on Thursdays. I can't wait because there's a whole array of wonderful food from from whatever, but we there's this guilty feeling when we decide, or I just want a little tiny piece, and then we have to give this whole defensive attack about why we're even eating this. Finally, Venn diagrams and good and bad foods. And so I've seen this in many, many schools. Um, when we're teaching health, for example, in our health and phys ed curriculum, um, one of the things that some teachers do is creating a Venn diagram or charts around good foods and bad foods, or healthy and unhealthy. And yeah, go to the next slide. There we go. So I just created this as an example, and I titled it "Watching Our Words" because how do we talk about this? So you'll notice here on my list, and I've created two groups here: good foods or healthy, and bad foods and unhealthy. So I just want you to look at the list for a second. We tend to see the food on the left, the good foods on our, Canada's food guide, etc. We talk about the food groups and all of that. In different schools, I've seen where flyers have been brought in. We cut them out and we create these collages or these in the Venn diagram. Sorry, it's not even a Venn, to be honest. It's two circles, because usually that middle part, which is what we have in common, there's oftentimes nothing in there. So whether it be lists like this or two separate circles, as I walk through schools and if I see this up, it's just always made me think. Is a piece of cake bad? Is it unhealthy? Is having a can of pop bad? Candy. Oh gosh, Halloween next week. The kids will be going, berserk for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks with candy. What are the words that we use with this? Are we talking about really, so now I want to give two different terms for these two different headings. Are we talking about always foods and sometimes foods? Because absolutely you want to make sure you're eating your fruits and vegetables and grains and breads and everything, protein. But we also don't want to create this dichotomy of good and bad. I think if I had way too many carrots, that's just as my friend sitting here, her friend, great story about eating too many carrots and peanut butter and what it did to her digestive system, right? And so we're not going to sit and eat a whole cake perhaps, but equally some of fruits and vegetables, we don't want to overdo it. So it's moderation. We want to talk to the kids about moderation. That sometimes your body, you're going to be like, I need a chocolate bar. Last night, I don't know if I was nervous about today or I woke up and I felt I needed some sugar, and I ran downstairs and grabbed a can of ginger ale, and I just had to drink it, and all of a sudden it just made me feel so much better. So our bodies talk to us. Our bodies talk to us. We can't ignore it. A friend of mine has talked to me about how babies, will cry when they're hungry, etc. They know, they're listening to their bodies. As we grow older, we start to ignore our bodies and our cues. So sometimes we need, having a piece of cake. I saw granola bar on the bad food. I'm like, oh gosh, I always thought that was a good thing, And so popcorn, right? Like, so basically, I can't eat when I go to the movies, right? So again, what are our perceptions about that? And again, our feelings of guilt and feeling bad, and that we then have to go attack the gym and work out even harder, etc. So watching our kids. So we could talk about always foods and then our sometimes foods, for example. So that's really important too. So these next two slides, I have 4 quotes. I love working with quotes as a teacher. Sometimes I know that when I first started teaching, it was all novels. novels, 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 and I turned off. And you know, some of my students now are 21, 22, and if I bump into some of them, and I always go, "Did I kill reading for you?" They're like, "No, you were fine." And so now I love using quotes because there's so much meaning embedded in quotes. I urge teachers all the time to work with quotes. There's lots of things in our curriculum, our reading curriculum, our writing curriculum, etc. You can use, you can do with a quote. You can get, you know, beauty is not in the face, beauty is a light in the heart. Okay, well, what does that mean? What is the message behind it, etc. Getting kids to work with that. So last year we did a whole our 3 grade 7, 8 classes where we did a body image unit, and we launched this unit with these are 4 out of the, I believe there were 6 or 8 quotes. So these are 2 of them, and then these are 2 other ones. I tell the kids that the second one on this slide I love because it's Helen Keller and I'm Helen, and you know, it's just, we're so connected, and I don't know. But yeah, it's all about me, I tell them. So they know, and it's not about them 7, 8. But right? So how do we see what is beautiful? Who defines what is beautiful? Why? So that just something for you to think about. All right. So I hope that helped to sort of get you thinking and get you challenging your own ideas and maybe perceptions, etc. Or maybe even confirmed and said, okay, because I know sometimes when I hear things, I think, thank you for saying that. So maybe you're saying, you're going, yeah, I agree. Thank you for saying that. Or maybe you disagree. Send me an email. Okay, so next we're going to move into the classroom integration. And I want to share with you different ideas, and I've tried to put as much as I can on the slides so that you can go back and refer to them and think, what was that book she talked about, or whatnot. So on this slide, I have a little bit, just some ideas from last year. Last year, I just mentioned we did a body image unit, and we were really fortunate where we partnered with NEDIC, and NEDIC was able to have at the last point on this slide, or the last note, is about the Director's Cut, which is an amazing organization that comes into schools and creates media pieces. So it's really, if you know the language curriculum and the media curriculum is really analyzing media and then creating media. And they really do a great job facilitating the creation of media. So we taught in our language, in our literacy block, we talked about body image as a big idea, and we tied in point of view, etc., and the expectations in the language curriculum. And then at the end, the students, the Director's Cut came in, and the students made media pieces. So my class, for example, made documentaries about the topic. The second class made claymation pieces, and then the third class did silent movies. So we were really lucky that NEDIC helped to bring the Director's Cut into our classrooms and to be able to do that. It was amazing. It was amazing to see students that were disengaged during my very exciting language classes before that. All of a sudden, they're behind the camera and they're doing all this media work. One boy that I think about in particular, that maybe this was the only time that I saw him really doing work and engaged, and it was so exciting and wonderful. So last year we used the Beyond Images curriculum, and I wanted to share with you, and you'll see on one of my slides I've given you the website so that you can find this. I was one of the co-authors of this. It's a grade 4 to 8 curriculum. Each grade has 4 lessons, but of course they're not 4 periods. One lesson really can spiral and take on a life of its own, actually, depending on the students too, and if they steer you in different ways. But we follow, because we are 7, 8 combined, we followed the grade 8 lessons, we thought, and because the language curriculum can lend itself to that. And we went through the lessons with our students. We created media diaries, and what it was a great big scrapbook that we had, and we just had kids starting to cut things out and put them in. We called things artifacts. Bring in your artifacts and do a reflection. And the kids said, you know, like they were steering their learning, etc., as well. So The media diaries were a great place. The Princess Boy, which is this book, I just wanted to show you. My Princess Boy. We used, and it looks at a little boy that likes to dress up in dresses, and his mom wrote this book. And so we even talked about sexuality. And so, you know, all these kids were making fun of him, and what does that mean? And who decides that we can't, that he couldn't wear dresses, or he couldn't like pink, etc. So we really dove into this book as well. This slide, I was able to work before being a 7-8 teacher this year and last year. I was a literacy coach, and I worked with a group of schools, and this was a 7-8 school that I worked with, and I wanted to include this to see how we can really connect and integrate the expectations. So if you're a teacher and you're listening and you're thinking, okay, well, how does this issue fit into my curriculum and my program? This is just an example of something we did where, and if you wanted, if you email me, I can send you this as a Word document. How it ties into the different, and what you can do within it, the different areas of language, and the health expectations. And just a little note about the health expectations is read them critically. I've noted a document there by Lorraine Dunlop Robinson and Diane Thompson, and they've done a lot of work, if you look up their names, around looking at the health curriculum across Canada. And is body image talked about? How is it? Is it effective, etc.? So these are some examples of different ways to integrate different activities as well. So I'm not going to read through all of this, but reading articles, using different, I've noted different strategies. Again, if you're reading these slides and you're like, what's the 3-2-1 strategy? Email me. I can tell you it's a great strategy, a literacy strategy to use with any piece of text, media, or written form, an image, etc. But how we can really embed the language curriculum, looking at the issue of body image. So again, here are some amazing sites that offer lessons for free. The Beyond Images PDFs are all there at the beyondimages.ca site, which is a new, or it's recently just created. So all the lessons are there for those for grades 4 to 8. I've given you a link for the Body Image Project, Reflections of Me from ETFO. There are a few lessons on there. That is one to purchase through ETFO, but there are some pieces there. NEDIC site. There's a great brand new site. So Lorraine Dunlop Robinson that I referred to before, and her team have created teachbodyimage.org and have began to create a repository of lessons and ideas, etc. And then of course the Dove Self-Esteem Fund as well is there with videos. And books. I love books. So I need to show you a couple of my favorites. The Best Part of Me. If you don't know this book, this is a great book. One of the things is in the book, I'll just show you just a picture of the best part of me and writing about the best part of me. And this is a great media writing integrated activity. We did it in one of my schools. Every classroom did it. And then we put them up with the pictures and then their writing. Last year, we thought, okay, 7-8, is this too primary for them to do? Well, our French teacher decided they were going to write in French about their best part of me, which is something in our core French program. They needed to write a paragraph, etc. So that's the way we integrated it as well. So it's a great book. I was just sharing this book before we started. I Wish I Were a Butterfly. This book is wonderful. It's in the ETFO unit, I think, as a grade 2 book. But never try not to pigeonhole books into grades. I read this book to my 7-8s. There's a great message, and they're thinking they can take them in different places. But what I love about this is a cricket that wants to be a butterfly, that's almost depressed and going through, goes and talks to a wise one, and the wise creature says, "Don't you are who you are. You are special." Cricket starts making music, and at the end of the book, the butterfly listens to the music and says, "I wish I could make beautiful music like that. I wish I were a cricket." So how we're constantly looking to see to be something other than ourselves. One other quick one. Todd Parr, I love. It's okay to be different. So that's a great one. Lots of other ones listed there as well. This is a poem right from the grade 3 unit of ETFO's Reflection of Me project. And one of the things that I've done with that in the unit, the authors have suggested is get the kids to write the last stanza. There is a last stanza as well that you can share with them, but it doesn't matter. You can have 20 students in your class, 20 different poems, 20 different endings, etc. So again, another great way to reflect on the issue. So whole school and community implementation. I think when I reflect on my own journey with the topic of body image and what I would like to do, I think this is the area that I would like to focus on more, is how do we get parents on board? Reflections of Me had a parent pamphlet that it came with, the ETFO project. And so the parent pamphlet we would talk to or send home to parents. Again, that's something I think offered as a PDF, but it is something that you can purchase as well. But again, maybe having a parent night. Is there a healthy living night? Sometimes in schools we do that, and we talk, different organizations come and set up booths, etc. Is this something we need to talk to our parents about, so that the messaging, if we're saying one thing, the same message goes home? I know students have talked to me over the years about, oh, my mommy's on a diet, so I'm going to diet with her. Grade 3 student has said that I'm not allowed to drink chocolate milk for a snack. I'm not allowed to do this because I'm going to do this diet and restrict my eating like someone at home has done. So that message needs to not only permeate through the school and be talked about as a staff, but then how do we get our parents included as well? So this is I love this poster from NEDIC. We need to celebrate. I think that's we need to celebrate that we're different. So like that child, like that choice for 10 seconds I had to say, don't call me fat, or yeah, you're right, I am fat, and that's wonderful. And we are all different sizes, and we're all different, and it's wonderful that we are all different. As Todd Parr says, it's okay to be different. So we need to celebrate and honor our natural sizes. So this is a final. I've shared this in different, if you were part of the group that heard the panel in February, I talked about this, I think, at the beginning of my talk, but there's an activity also from the grade 3, and I'll show you, this is the kindergarten Reflections of Me book. So this is the curriculum, the units. So the grade 3 one has this wonderful activity that it launches the whole unit. And it says, I have this box. Here's my box right here. And I say to the kids, and I've done this K to 8 with adults as well. And I say, I have the most beautiful thing in the world in this box. And so the kids, sometimes you can get them just to talk about what could be in the box. And then you have to get why, and so it's so interesting. Kids will say, it's a diamond, or it's a flower, or my grade 7, 8s last year, I don't know, maybe they thought there were hundreds of dollars. I said, yeah, I'm going to put hundreds of dollars in here. Are you crazy? Right? So, but money was in there, etc. And so the kids, sometimes I have them write why. So if you think it's a diamond, why would I put the most beautiful thing? Why would that be in there? And so then I go one around, and the lesson asks that you go around one at a time, because actually what's in the box is a mirror. And so this is going to make me cry, because I've seen kids start to cry. They see that reflection and they're like, me? And I've had adults do the same thing. I've had people look away and look away honestly in disgust. Some people not wanting to see that reflection. Some people smiling, some crying. And we have this great conversation with every group that I've done this with, adults, from the little ones to the bigger ones, and we really talk about how do you feel about yourself, because it has to start with you. So, final reflection. And finally, we're just finishing up. I can't thank you enough for joining me. I have my email address there. My last name is very long, so I'm sorry it couldn't just be helen.v@esp, but it's there. Please, I welcome any emails or feedback, ideas. If you want some more ideas, etc., there's lots that I would be more than happy to share with you. So thank you for coming.
Helen, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I am your biggest fan. I could listen to you for hours, and I'm sure many of you could as well. Lots of takeaways here. I'm talking about intuitive eating, the importance of adult influences and influences on children in the classroom, the language that we use, and reflections on classroom integration. I think, Helen, you do a great job of integrating sort of macro practice, these sort of greater concepts of body image and what they mean. And then how you integrate that in the classroom and using brass tacks. So I want to reiterate that we're going to be getting all of these, the slides, the resources that Helen mentioned. They'll be sent to you over email. We have referred a few times to a panel discussion that happened last year in Toronto. Helen's presentation from that night, as well as the other panelists, those are all available on NEDIC's YouTube page. So you can go there to explore it. We do have a couple questions and comments that have come up in the chat box, and we've got just a few minutes to address one or two of them. So Kira says, I think Helen's presentation was wonderful and very inspiring. Congratulations to her for her amazing work in this area. Question for Helen. I absolutely agree that these views around body image are so ingrained and require approaches that reach educators, parents, etc. Speaking to the school community, how receptive do you think educators are to challenging some of these internalized beliefs about body shape and size? So maybe barriers or windows that you're seeing in terms of talking about this stuff within an educational environment to the whole school community.
That's a really great question, because there have been, as I mentioned the one teacher that I talked to sort of quietly about, having her hand slapped by her students. Not everyone is receptive to hearing, and some things are so ingrained that it is what it is, and I become sort of that person that they avoid, right? Because they don't want to say things in front of me. And it's not that, to be honest, I use humor all the time, so it's not like I'm walking around yelling at people, but I think to ask the questions, not everyone is receptive. People have their, including people in my own life. To be honest, I've talked to my dad over and over and over again, but he believes that I need to lose weight, and he will remind me all the time. And I say, thank you so much. I hug him, and then I go into the car and I scream. So am I going to change his point of view? No, but I'm going to it makes it tough to be strong, but that's what I've learned over the years. So not everyone is receptive, but we have to keep challenging them, is what I believe. Asking, that's why I pose questions to you even. Pose questions, I think.
I think there's also advantages to be said for bringing in evidence-based research in the form of some of the curricula and so on that have been mentioned. I mean, a lot of folks are using them. People are using Beyond Images across the country, and I think that can potentially add some weight if you're in a conversation with an administrator about bringing this into your classroom. Yeah. So Sarah Parks Quinn says, thanks, Helen. As a nurse practitioner working in eating disorders and a mother of 2 elementary school-aged children, I love your approach and messaging. How would you recommend a parent take this messaging into their children's school? So from the parent's perspective, which can at times be more challenging in terms of having an influence in the school.
I think what Jackie just mentioned too, around even sometimes when I share these resources, teachers will say, oh my God, I didn't know that was there. And so the Beyond Images, the reflections of me, the different pieces, sometimes it's teachers feel overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed all the time thinking about what I need to do and what I need to cover, etc. So sometimes sharing the resources and sharing maybe some of the resources that I have here on the slides, just going in and saying, I heard this, and there's a whole integrated unit. All of a sudden, the entire language curriculum can be integrated and embedded with all the 4 language strands, etc. That sometimes is great for teachers to hear, to say, yeah, okay, I can do this, and it can be really focused in all strands, not just reading, etc. So I think sharing the resources, to be honest, as a parent, to go in and just and really and be excited, and just say, I heard this and it sounds really great, and even if it's in one of my schools, we decided when we were a pilot school for ETFO's Reflections of Me, we decided we're going to just try one lesson, all of us. And so starting out small, that still makes an impact. To have a conversation will still make an impact. It doesn't have to be a whole 4-month unit, etc. So I think sharing the ideas and the resources and the websites is a great way to start. And I hope that helps.
Mm-hmm. We are at 5 o'clock now. I know that many of you have questions, and I want to give you a chance to have the answers that you're looking for. So I'm going to see if we have time just for one more question, and then hopefully we don't get kicked out of the room here. And again, if folks have other questions, email myself or Helen. Patricia Kelly says, as a psychotherapist working almost exclusively with eating disorder clients, I'm pleased to learn more about what's happening in schools. And excited by what you're doing. And KBED Clinic says, have you any advice on how to get co-ed groups of kids to engage and open up on the subject of body image, so potential icebreakers?
The mirror, the box, that's how I start my unit with the different grades that I've taught. When I was a teacher librarian, I would partner, I've done it with grade 3, 4, etc. I always start to be honest, and that's why I wanted to show you, what do I have in this box, the most beautiful thing in the world. That is a great icebreaker to start the conversation and to start talking about. And we don't want to, just talk about body image around the way we look. We talk about building positive self-esteem. We talk about resiliency. We talk about challenging messages in the media. So it could even be bringing in, and I wonder if I had one example. No, there's file folders with different media, just from magazines pulling out and just talking about, well, what message is shared here about what is cool, what is valued. So boys being totally covered up in these polo shirts and women being totally exposed, or etc. So different ideas, but the mirror in the box is a great icebreaker to start.
Okay, we're going to have to unfortunately end it there. I'm sure we could go on. Thank you all for joining us today. So thrilled to have you here, and we will be getting all of those slides again out to you by email. Any further comments and questions that you have, we'll get them to you. Again, we'll get those answers to you by email, or you could share them here. We will need to end the chat momentarily, though. So again, thank you, Helen.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. Thank you,
thanks
everyone
for joining.
Yeah.
Okay, take good care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.